These types of books are everything I want to read right now. Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. Lately I've been really intrigued by books that feels a bit different, that sort of plays around with the formatting, with the narrative, with the storytelling. I've been talking a lot about how I've been enjoying books with a different sort of formatting, where perhaps there are mixed media elements, where the story is being told in a different way than just your regular sort of prose. So in today's video I thought I would talk about some of these books that I've been reading lately and give some of my recommendations for books giving a different reading experience. And if you have any suggestions and recommendations for books similar to these, please feel free to share them, because these are literally the only thing I want to read right now. I've split this into 3 different sorts of categories. We have the more literary books, we have the mystery books, and then we have some horror that I haven't read yet, but will hopefully get to very soon. To kick this off, let's start with the books in the category that I'm calling Literary Choices Through a Different Mind. So in here I have 3 books. Let's talk about the one that started this craze, this entire thing. Earlier this summer I picked up The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. I've since learned that people read this in high school, that it's more like a YA novel. I've never really come across this book before. I really picked it up on a whim because I flipped through it in the store and saw that there were like images and sketches and math problems and similar things in this book. It was when I started to read this that I sort of realized that, ooh, things like these really intrigue me right now. I've known since before that I enjoy books with mixed media elements, with a different sort of formatting, but this is sort of the one that made me pay more attention to that. So this is the story about Christopher Boone, who is, I believe he's 15, and he has Asperger's syndrome. And he knows a great deal about maths and very little about human beings. He loves lists, patterns, and the truth, and he hates the colors yellow and brown and being touched. This is sort of set up as being a mystery where Christopher, our main character, comes across a dead dog one day, and he wants to find out what happened to the dog, who the suspect is, who killed the dog. And then the story sort of develops into something else. What I really appreciate about this book is truly being in the mind of Christopher. And this is sort of where I mean that the story is being told through a way that makes us understand our main character more, and that makes us sort of feel what he is feeling. So the first interesting thing that caught my eye when I was reading this is that we start with chapter 2. The first chapter of the book is called chapter 2. We then have chapter 3, and then we suddenly have chapter 5, 7, so on. The reason being, these are prime numbers. So the chapter titles, the chapter numbers are only prime numbers. The font is also, this is like super nerdy I guess, but the font is a sans serif font, meaning it doesn't have those like little feet on the letters, which there typically is in books in order to just make the reading more cohesive and sort of have a flow. It's like the feet leads you to the next word, the next letter. But this is a sans serif font, meaning we don't have that, which I just think is an interesting choice. And then occasionally, here we have a page with like smileys that he uses in order to understand people. There's a bunch of different lists throughout this one. A lot of the storytelling is just Christopher straight up just saying what he sees, like, and then I saw this, and then I did this, and then I went here, and then we did that, and then I read this book, and it had this thing on the cover, and it did da-da-da-da-da-da. Here's another page with like a list. Here's a map. I've read mixed media books before. This isn't my first turn. I read the Illumine files back in the day, really enjoyed those. I will talk about the Janice Hallett books soon. So like mixed media is new to me. But this was sort of just a different way of understanding our main character. And I really appreciated that. So this is definitely a recommendation if you, like me, haven't heard or come across this book before. I give it 4 stars. I'm thinking about upping that rating actually, or at least giving it a 4.5, because I really did enjoy this and I think about this book a lot. Next book in this category, and and sort of in a similar vein to The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, is Flowers for Algernon. Another very recent read of mine, and another story where we are getting into the mind of our main character with the help of how this book is written. So this book is about Charlie, who was born with an unusually low IQ, and he has been chosen as the perfect subject for an experimental surgery that researchers hope will increase his intelligence. The same procedure has been successfully tested on a lab mouse named Algernon. As the treatment takes effect, Charlie's intelligence expands until it surpasses that of the doctors who engineered his metamorphosis. The experiment appears to be a scientific breakthrough of paramount importance until Algernon suddenly deteriorates. What will happen to Charlie? So yeah, some similarities to The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, with the focus being a lot on, I guess, intelligence and also emotional intelligence. And this was a wonderful book. I got it as a recommendation from a friend. It's her favorite book, so I picked it up. Hadn't heard about it before, and now I'm suddenly seeing this book everywhere lately. I'm seeing it on displays, I'm seeing it on Book Talk. I had never seen this one around either, so this was a very unexpected read for me. What's interesting in the formatting of this one is how it's actually written. The story is being told through journal entries made by Charlie. So we see here the absolute first journal entry, or progress report as he calls it. So it says here, progress report 1 March 3rd. And if you can see it, a lot of misspellings. And then we're getting his journal entry, and there's a lot of grammatical errors, spelling errors, barely any punctuation, no apostrophes or anything like that. Yeah, and that is his entry before he did the surgery. And then as the story continues and he gets this surgery done, we sort of see how he starts to change, how his intelligence is improving. Here we actually have a properly spelled progress report title, and he starts doing the entries in a different way. It also goes from being that very simplistic sort of, I saw this and then I went here and then we did that and then this happened and this la la la, to him actually reflecting upon things, thinking about things. And yeah, the story really evolves that way. And like we're getting proper punctuation and like quotation marks and apostrophes. I truly follow him on his journey as he's learning things. And I think that's just a really interesting choice, and it was almost like a struggle reading this at first with all of the spelling errors, and then just give it a few pages or chapters, things will be completely different. And it really just emphasizes this character's journey and experience. We wouldn't have understood it in the same way if we had had proper grammar and spelling from the start. This really helps in explaining how our character is developing, and I just think that's really freaking cool. This book I gave 5 stars, I believe, or at least 4.5, but rounding it up to 5. I think about it a lot as well. Like these two overall sort of set the tone for my summer in regards what sort of books I want to read. I really like books playing with the topic of intelligence. I've come to realize both regular intelligence and also emotional intelligence, and just giving characters perspectives in a very different way. And I really, really liked and appreciated that. Now for the third and final book in this category, I will pivot a bit from those types of books and talk about a book that is just like one of my absolute favorites as well, where the storytelling is just different from a regular book written in prose. And this is, once again, it's a jump from the other books, but the book I wanted to mention, because it is, after all, told in a different way, and a book I really enjoy because of that, is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is about a band in the 70s that sold out arenas from coast to coast and then suddenly split up. Nobody ever knew why, and then they are doing like a tell-all documentary about this band. And this story is actually told through interviews. So instead of having a regular sort of prose with paragraph after paragraph, it's sort of like we get the name of the character and then what they say in the interview and how they experience things. I really liked that about this book, actually. I really liked reading the interviews, getting the perspectives, getting the different perspectives. I remember one thing that I enjoyed a lot was it really showed how people were selective with what they remembered or not, or how they remembered things differently, and perhaps some people sort of unintentionally lie when they don't properly remember and stuff. So people would be asked the same thing or be asked to talk about the same event, and they would tell the story completely differently because they remembered it differently or experienced it differently. And I think that's just a lot of fun because it also shows that with these sorts of memoirs and biographies and such and retrospectives, we don't really remember that much that well. There's tons of different versions and different ways of telling a story, and that's something that's really shown in this one. Yeah, I read this one years ago, tabbed it a lot. It's just a book I found really fun, exciting. I love books about music. I love books about celebrity and the lives of the famous and the glamorous and the ups and downs of all of that. I really think it's so interesting. So this book was right up my alley straight away. And the fact that it's being told through interviews with the people from the band, I just think it was a genius move, to be honest. I'm sure you've heard of this. There's also an excellent TV show to watch. I just wanted to mention it because when I started to plan for this video, I realized that, this is also one of those books where the formatting really helped with the storytelling, even though it's completely different from the other books I've talked about so far. It doesn't always have to be that serious with the formatting. It can be for entertainment purposes as well. The next category is, as I decided to call it, mystery enhancers, where the reader is asked to participate perhaps a bit more actively than in your normal mystery book. A very on-the-nose example for this, where the reader is 100% active, is Can You Solve the Murder by Anthony Johnston. I made an entire video of me attempting to solve this murder. I will link it. But yeah, this is an interactive crime novel where you can choose the story yourself. So basically, the book is split into sections that are numbered, and after each section, you get a choice. It can be as simple as, do you want to interview this suspect or this suspect? Do you want to go to this location or this location? And when you make a choice, you can sometimes be asked to write down what they call a clue number, which I did back here. So you can write down a clue number and then you will be asked to go to a different section. So you don't read the book in numerical order. You jump around throughout the book quite a lot. And you can mess up, because I did. If you're more interested in like me trying to solve this book, as mentioned, there's an entire video of that. But this is actually like a proper story as well. There is an actual crime that we're trying to solve. We have actual characters we're following. It's a lot of fun. I just thought this was a really freaking good time. I enjoyed this book a lot. I really appreciated that I could participate in the story, decide where I wanted to go with it. I loved the interactive part. I thought it was so well executed. I had like my own notebook of things I wanted to pay attention to. I worked with the clue numbers. I even put down some tabs for when there were like coded messages and things. And yeah, I had a good time with this. This book is about a murder that has happened at a wellness retreat, and we as the detective arrive to find the body of a local businessman who appears to have fallen from a balcony above, been stabbed, and has a rose placed in his mouth. And we now have to interview people at this wellness retreat to figure out what happened, who could have wanted him dead, and why, and all of that. So it's just extremely interactive, a lot of fun, and a good time. If you're into your mysteries, if you want to challenge yourself, I highly, highly recommend this one. A very recent read of mine that feels interactive and a bit meta, but isn't in the same way as Can You Solve the Murder? Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies by Catherine Mack. I read this just a couple of weeks ago, loved it, read it within a day. And it's a very interesting story in the way that we are following an author who is on a book tour. And this book is a script that she is writing. So that's what we're reading. And in this script, she writes down a lot of footnotes. So we are actually reading the script that she's writing. I'm repeating myself, but only to emphasize that. So throughout the book, there's plenty, like over hundreds of footnotes. And it's just her own comments on like, yeah, you can scratch this, or oh yeah, this is funny, or with this I mean that, with this I'm referring to this, so on, so on. So there's over 200 footnotes in this, where sometimes the writer is even referring to you as the reader, writing things like, you won't understand this yet, or we will get back to this point later on, things like that. And we also have some like mixed media elements in it, so like the itinerary for the trip, a few like pamphlets and things like that. And the story is about Eleanor Dash, the author, who is the best-selling author of the Vacation Mystery series, and she's on a book tour along the gorgeous Amalfi Coast with some other writers, her sister who is her manager, and also a couple of ex-boyfriends, just to make things even messier. And one of her ex-boyfriends, and also the protagonist of her book series, is convinced that he's being targeted by a killer, and they sort of start to investigate this while being on this book tour. And it's very meta, that it's like an author who writes mysteries that finds herself within a mystery and is writing about it and talking to the reader of that universe, which is also the reader of our universe. A lot of fun though. This is super fast paced, a lot of dialogue, a lot of just like rapid fire spitting things. I think she has a very fun tone in her writing as well. I think I was definitely entertained. I liked our main character a lot. And there's an interesting part by the third act of this book that is literally called Breaking the Fourth Wall, where the author, Eleanor Dash, not Catherine Mack, where the author of the fictional author, I think, maybe, is asking us, the readers, to see if we can figure out what's going on. They are literally breaking the fourth wall and asking us to actively think about what's going on. It's not as interactive as this one, but it's still asking us to participate and think for ourselves. And that's just interesting and very different, and it's quite rare that books do that, I feel like. Was it necessary in this book? I actually don't think so. I feel like we could have done without the breaking the fourth wall thing, because they also explain like, oh, in the first act we're setting things up, in the second act something happens, and in the third act everything gets resolved. And I just feel like that was a bit unnecessary, I guess, or we didn't need that, or it sort of felt like they were trying to explain things that need, like, if you read books, you know and understand first, second and third acts, I would say. So it was sort of like they were really trying to hold your hand and guide you throughout the experience by adding that part, and that wasn't necessary. Nevertheless, I had so much fun reading this book. I've already picked up the sequel. I'm very excited to get to it as well. I'm hoping for the same sort of humor, same amount of footnotes, all of that. I think I'm not certain what to expect, if it's gonna be like reading the fictional author's book again, or if it's gonna be something else, but I'm just excited. Another recent read that is even more traditional in how it's written, but with some interesting choices, is The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark, who is an author duo made up of V.E. Schwab and Kat Clark. And of course I'm a V.E. Schwab fan, I will read anything she writes. This is a sort of like a locked room mystery. It's about 6 authors who are invited to this private island, and they have 72 hours to finish a manuscript. So world famous author Arthur Fletch is dead. His final novel, the most anticipated book in history, remains unfinished. but the ending won't write itself. So these authors are asked to go to his island and are locked in order to write the ending of his novel. It's different types of authors. We have like a romance author, a horror author, sci-fi author, mystery authors, and I really like that. And the book is split into parts, and the first part is called The Players. And here we are following the perspectives of the different authors. So we have the thriller writers, and then we're following those authors. And then suddenly we get another chapter like this, where we have the horror writer, or we have the sci-fi writer. So that's sort of how we're getting the different perspectives, which I really appreciate. There's also some mixed media elements. So like, here's like a letter that someone wrote to someone. We get snippets of manuscripts. Here's like an article or blog post. So like bits of mixed media mixed into this. And then we get to part 2, which is called Main Character Energy. And here we have like actual chapter headers, or it says like chapter 1, 2, 3, so on, so on. The story is evolving a bit more. And then later on in the book, as the story is sort of starting to reveal itself, we're actually getting like these heading pages with the name of the person whose perspective we're reading from. I feel like this book could have easily stuck to like a regular formula in how the story was being told, just doing regular prose up and down. But because of these additional elements of like either the chapter names being the genre of the author we're reading about, or having those header pages, or having the chapter names, a bit of mixed media, I just think I really like that. It brought something different to this story. It's quite like a common story, I would say, with the locked room mystery, a bunch of authors going to a deserted island. That's not really new, I've read that before, but I feel like this book benefited from being told in a bit of a different way. So it's not like it takes a lot for a different sort of formatting to intrigue me. This is definitely enough. This is another book I rated quite highly. I think I gave it 4.5 stars or something. I really had no complaints about it either. Wasn't anything revolutionary, but was just highly entertaining. And then the final group of books I wanted to talk about for the mystery enhancers are books by Janice Hallett. I'm sure you've seen these around. I personally, first of all, think just they look super duper cool. I think her most famous is The Appeal. The first one I read by her actually is The Mysterious Case by the Alperton Angels, and it's the one I've enjoyed the most. This was a 5-star read for me. The rest of her books so far that I read, at least, or out of these 3, have honestly just been like 2 or 3-star reads. I feel like the way she tells her stories are quite fun and exciting with the mixed media that I will talk about soon. It's just that the mysteries themselves are usually quite boring. Except for in this one. This one was actually a good, fun mystery. Basically, Janice Hallett's books are books told through mixed media. So these stories are told through emails, documentation, text messages, logs. In many of these cases, it's actually like we are reading up on old, cold cases, I would say. So a couple of characters that we're following or sort of reading as, we are getting we're getting all of these documents to read through to sort of see if we can come to a conclusion regarding the mystery. So it's sort of like a cold case approach, I would say. If you enjoy mysteries and if you enjoy the mixed media format, definitely check these out. Because once again, just to show you, like this is sort of what the pages look like, right? So a lot of interviews. In this case, here it's more like text messages, emails is quite common. In the Twyford Code we had audio files that were being transcribed with different voices and all. My favorite is definitely The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels. I gave that 5 stars. It's about a true crime author who knows about this cult and is diving deeper into that. The Twyford Code is about this children's book author who is suspected of having hidden clues in her book, and now someone is trying to sort of research into that. The appeal is about this theater group in a small town where there has been a tragic death. And then we have like a Christmas novella that relates to that. I believe this is getting a sequel now as well this fall called The Silent Appeal. This was a 5-star read for me. This was a 2-star read because I just thought the case was boring. The Christmas book was 3 stars because it was like a simple Christmas novella, and I think the Twyford Code was like a 2.5 stars, something like that. So I know it sounds like I'm not really into them, but I was really into the first book, and there's something about these that even though the crimes and like the actual mysteries aren't the most interesting ones, I just really like the storytelling and reading these. I just think it's fun. So I feel like they do scratch that different formatting, mixed media sort of itch that I sometimes have. So that's why I'm keeping them, and will continue to pick up Janice Hallett's books because I find them entertaining. That was the mystery category. Our final one is for horror and books that help with setting an atmosphere due to how they have been formatted and written. The first book I want to talk about in this category is The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. This is the only Paul Tremblay book I've read so far, and if I'm gonna be honest, it's a few years now since I read it, like 2 or 3 years. I don't remember that much, so I won't be able to remember exactly how the formatting enhanced the experience. I just remember that it did. It's about a story that takes place in the 80s. We are following Art, who is an awkward teenager with scoliosis. He has no extra credits to get him into college, so he starts the Pallbearers Club, mourning for people with no one else to bury them, which introduces him to Mercy Brown. Mercy is into bands, local history, and taking photos of the dead. So pallbearers are, if I remember correctly, the ones that actually like carry the coffin to the altar and things like that. So they sort of start this club, being a bit like morbid teenagers, showing up at these funerals and sort of, mourning people they don't know. Decades later, Art writes his memoir to try and make sense of it all, because nothing about Mercy is simple. Their friendship twists and coils, captured in Polaroid snapshots and sweaty gigs and inexplicable flashes of the parasite lurking in a folded jacket at night. Art is writing, but Mercy is reading, and she thinks Art's novel, This Isn't a Memoir, needs some work, and she's more than happy to set the record straight. What if Art didn't get everything right? Basically, I know this is sounding confusing, but this is once again like a manuscript that Art has written, but then we have Mercy making annotations throughout the story. So we have handwritten text, which is supposed to be Mercy's input about things. Sometimes it's just like comments or quips about the writing, just like, I kind of like that one, run to the hills, like random things. And sometimes there's like actual long paragraphs of Mercy writing more how she experienced things and so on. And I really don't remember this story that much, I realize now. But it makes for a really interesting read with this sort of reading a book that has already been annotated sort of feel, and it sort of makes you question who you should trust, which narrator is the most reliable. Is it Art, who has written the script, or is it Mercy that is commenting on it and telling him off on things that isn't true but that he believes is true? Like whose truth is the actual truth is sort of the question here. Once again, when I was making this video, I just remembered this book and remembered that I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, and that this had a different sort of formatting. So I really think it's a theme. Most of these books that I've talked about today, I've given a really high rating because of how my reading experience has been enhanced by the choices in the storytelling. These final 2 books I don't have that much to say about yet because I haven't actually read them, but I do intend to do so very soon, and I do expect to enjoy them a lot, but take it with a grain of salt. But these are just books I have on my current TBR that also have a different sort of formatting. First off, we can't talk about books that don't read like normal books without talking about House of Leaves. This is a book I've actually started. I'm 44 pages into it. I think I started it like 2 years ago. And yeah, I First of all, it's just different in how it's formatted. Like, it's a lot bigger than your regular sort of paperback. I started to read it. I have tabbed it a bit as well. I'm really hoping to make a new attempt with reading and finishing this one this fall, so fingers crossed for that. This book is about a house that is somehow bigger on the inside than on the outside. From what I remember, I think it's a character who sort of comes across this story with a lot of documents about someone trying to do research about this. I might be making things up now. And once again, there's like a lot of footnotes. There's a lot of like typewriter written pages and such. There's a lot of articles. It's about someone sort of becoming obsessed with finding out the mystery of this house, if I remember it correctly. First off, it's just a bunch of just like long pages in typewriter font, articles, such things like that. But then things start to get messier and trickier. And it's sort of like as if the story has been told on just like random scraps of paper throughout time and someone is trying to puzzle it together. Suddenly we're getting like pages like this where we have red text that have been stroken through. We have like random squares with text in them. We suddenly have pages like this one that is just like unexplainable. Yeah, things just get really super messy. Some pages barely have any text on them. There's like poems suddenly or just random words throughout many pages. Things like this. Like the story just gets really messed up. And there's like a bunch of appendices and journal entries here in the back. This is actually a good reminder for me to get back into the story. I don't remember much of those first 40 pages. I don't think I will attempt to reread that. I rarely do when I get back into a book. I'm just gonna continue where I am and see if I can sort of remember what's going on before. Not that much has happened yet. There's like this much book left, so I'm not worried. This is like the book when we're talking about book with a different formatting, with mixed media, with a story that don't read like a normal book. So of course I need to mention this book if I'm making this sort of video. But yeah, it's definitely horror. Some people love it, some people don't get it. I think it's up to you as the reader regarding how much you want to get into the book as well. You can, from what I heard, you can sort of flip back and forth throughout the book as well. Sometimes there's like an appendix that they are referring to or something. But it's up to you how much you want to do that, I guess. And then the final book, which is another book I have not yet read, but I'm hoping to read soon, is Strange Pictures by Uketsu. This is a horror mystery translated from Japanese. It's a series now, or multiple books at least, with also strange buildings and strange houses, and it has become really popular in recent years. I feel like this is gonna be something I will really enjoy. Apparently there are clues in pictures throughout this book, and you as the reader might be able to uncover what's going on because of these pictures. So we have this sort of like first page of the book, or the actual jacket of the book, and then throughout the book there are, here's like a map, I'm guessing, some images, so perhaps a bit similar to the first book I talked about in this video, where there is a story but we just get these pictures and additional sorts of media throughout the story. And I'm really curious to see if I will be able to figure out this mystery on my own or not. I'm really gonna make an attempt to, at least. I plan on making another one of the bookcase files videos for this one, so I am excited about that. I've heard and seen great things about this series overall, so I really don't know what to expect yet. I'm not able to say if I recommend it, but it's a book where I believe the story is definitely enhanced by the choices made. Which is the theme for the books I've been talking about today, right? And there we have it! These are books I feel quite passionately about. I really appreciate what they are doing, the things they are doing, and I'm just very excited to read more books like these ones in the future. So if you have any recommendations that came to mind while I was talking about these books, please share them, both for me and for everyone else. I am certain that there are plenty of more books similar to these floating around that I haven't heard of yet. just like many of these books were books I had never even paid attention to before, and now suddenly I'm obsessed with them. Many of these books are favorite books of mine. I really come to realize this summer that there is a pattern for me with enjoying books that have something that enhances the story more than just being a well-written story. Please let me know if you ever thought about these sorts of things, if you have ever paid attention to books that have something different in the way the story is being told and what you think of that. Once again, please leave any recommendations you might have, and also let me know if you will pick up any of these books because of the way I talked about them today. I really hope you will. I've blabbered on for way too long, so let's wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye!